Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Net Zero webinar. I can see that people are registering, but I think we're up to our numbers now. So lovely to see you. If people would like to turn on their cameras, that would be great. I just think I would like to start the webinar just by trying to explain Net Zero, just to sort of put it in simple sort of words, really. With the scale of extreme weather we've seen over the past few years, from the extreme heat in the South Med and elsewhere, forest fires, flooding, few people can now deny that we are facing a climate emergency. The scientific evidence is clear. Emissions of greenhouse gases resulting from human activity are causing our climate to change, which is extremely worrying. Carbon dioxide is emitted when fossil fuels are burned to meet our demand for energy. Although it isn't the only greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide is the most significant. As such, the term carbon emissions is often used to talk about greenhouse gas emissions. To address the problem, in June 2019, the UK became the first major economy to pass legislation that commits the country to net zero emissions by 2050. In other words, the target is to reduce net greenhouse gas emissions by 100% relative to 1990 levels by the middle of this century. And this brings us to ULEZ, which we obviously Londoners, we all know about. We all agree that London needs cleaner air and less emissions, but the practicalities of the scheme have caused some concern. I'm really pleased that Stephen Jones from LCCI is with us today, because they've been lobbying hard for various changes in the mayor's sort of rulings. Stephen, would you like to start us off, please?
Absolutely, and thank you very much to Sally and to West London Chambers for having us along. So London Chamber of Commerce, we're a business representative organisation with businesses all across the city, and today I'm going to talk to you about the ULEZ policy. My name's Stephen Jones and I'm the Policy and Research Manager at London Chamber. So, as I'm sure most people are aware, ULEZ, or the Ultra Low Emission Zone, is a road user charging scheme based in the capital. And essentially, when you enter the zones, you pay a flat rate of £12.50 for every time you enter into the zone. It operates 24 hours a day, every day of the year, except for Christmas, when you get a day off. In order for your vehicle to be compliant with ULEZ, it must meet TfL's requirements, which are for Euro 3 for motorcycles, mopeds, and motorised tricycles, Euro 4 for petrol cars, vans and minibuses, and Euro 6 for diesel cars, vans and minibuses. Worth noting that if you drive a lorry or a van and specialist heavy vehicles which are over 3.5 tonnes, buses and mini coaches over 5 tonnes, you do not need to pay the ULEZ charge. You may need to pay the low emission zone charge, which is a separate charge if your vehicle is not compliant with that scheme. The scheme was first announced in 2014 under then Mayor Boris Johnson, but was not introduced until 2019 under Sadiq Khan. In April 2019 is when the scheme first came in. The main aims of the scheme are to improve air quality, which I think everybody can agree is very important in London. So the aim is to encourage people to use cleaner vehicles, or indeed to switch to alternative forms of transport, public transport, walking, cycling. These are just some examples. It's also worth noting that the scheme does generate revenue for Transport for London, although by their own estimates, these revenues will dwindle come sort of 26-27, the financial year for 2026-2027. And this is because compliance improves. So as people eventually switch to using either cleaner vehicles, compliant vehicles, or indeed stop driving and then use other forms of transport, the revenues generated from the scheme will decrease. The operating area, so when the scheme was first introduced, it covered the same area as the congestion charge in central London. In 2021, October 2021, the ULEZ zone was widened up to, but not including, the North and South Circular roads, which is what it currently covers at this point. However, in 2022, Sadiq Khan announced that he was consulting on widening the zone again to cover all of Greater London, which is a decision which has caused a bit of disgruntlement, it has to be said. This decision was then confirmed at the end of 2022, and following a few challenges in the High Court, it's now confirmed that the ULEZ will cover all of London from the 29th of August 2023. So 13 days time it kicks in. This is obviously quite a big change compared to what it was before, and a lot has been going on in the background around mitigations for helping people to adjust to this change, as a far larger number of people will be affected now by the zone. Typically, people in outer London rely on their cars to a greater extent than they do in inner London, and due to availability of public transport, particularly in South London, it has to be said as well. But yeah, there are a number of mitigations in place to try and help people with this transition, and the principal mitigation is through a scrappage scheme, which the Mayor introduced. Now, LCCI has been working very closely with the Mayor on this scrappage scheme. When it was first announced, it was quite limited in its scope, quite limited to micro businesses, so those with only 0 to 9 employees, and only to Londoners on means-tested benefits. So it was really focused in its scope. However, we've been pushing the Mayor to make this scheme as generous as possible, and indeed it's worth noting that there's still a large proportion of the scrappage scheme which hasn't been used up, so it suggests there's still scope for more people to try and get their cars scrapped and get payments towards a new vehicle. So from the 21st of August 2023, the scrappage scheme won't be open to all Londoners. And yes, you may be thinking that is only 8 days before the ULEZ widens to outer London. And it is a very tight timescale, unfortunately. And there will be, I think, and I imagine, some overlap where people don't get their payments quite in time for the start of the scheme. This point has been made to the Mayor, but I think this is the best we are going to get at this point. About the scrappage scheme itself, eligible applicants can get up to £2,000 for scrapping a car, or up to £1,000 for scrapping a motorcycle. For wheelchair accessible vehicles, you can get a payment of up to £10,000 to scrap, or £6,000 to retrofit. It's worth noting that you can, as part of these schemes, you can retrofit certain vehicles, mostly vans or indeed wheelchair accessible vehicles, to become compliant with the scheme. However, again, now the scheme is also open to small businesses, thanks to LCCI working with the local chambers across the city. There's the eligibility criteria has increased from just micro companies up to all small businesses, and that's anybody with employees up to 50 employees. And thanks to another round of recent changes, the number of vehicles that can be scrapped has also increased from 2 to 3, which will hopefully help a number of businesses as they look to improve their fleets and make them more compliant. Worth noting that in order to access the scheme, you must live in one of the 32 boroughs or the City of London. And the final thing that I wanted to mention was a grace period. If your vehicle if you have ordered a new vehicle and it doesn't arrive by the time the scheme introduces, there is now a period of up to 6 months for which you can apply, and then you won't be charged while you wait for your new vehicle to arrive. I think that's my time, so I'm going to stop there. But thank you very much, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you. It's interesting because yes, I live just outside Chiswick, and yes, we had to get rid of our diesel car, which we did, and we can now have a petrol car, which is ULEZ compliant. And Alan has gone the whole hog and now has his electric Tesla. I'm still trying to persuade my other half that this is possibly the way forward, but I'm meeting a little bit of resistance on that one. But we'll keep you posted. Thank you. As I say, thank you, Stephen. One thing I did want to just point out that on commercial EV charging points, there are no charging points in our 3 boroughs, Ealing, Hounslow and Hammersmith and Fulham. I just thought I would point that out. I think Hillingdon also doesn't have any either. So it is, yeah, I'm just putting it out there. Okay, our next speaker is Ros from Engineered Green Technologies.
Sally, before you move on, can I just quickly ask Stephen a question? He's asked if he'd like questions. Stephen, how did the pressure come about on the Mayor of London to give people this waive period if they've ordered an electric vehicle and it's taking a year to be delivered?
Well, we were speaking with businesses within our membership who were making this point that okay, they're going to make their purchases to become more compliant and to buy a compliant vehicle. And it's worth, I think, as a lot of people in this room will know, that businesses will try to future-proof as much as possible. So many were looking to buy electric vehicles. You know, they weren't just looking to buy another petrol vehicle. They were really looking ahead to that kind of new technology, which I think a lot of people expect will be there for some time. And the delivery times, which stem from a number of different issues, kind of legacy issues from COVID, but also just greater supply chain issues, were suggesting that the lead-in times of vehicles were going to take up to 18 months, well past the date that the charging zone around outer London would be covered. So we made that point to the mayor and to TfL on a number of occasions, and unfortunately they were willing to listen to that, and they brought in this grace period, which, as I say, for where businesses can show. It's worth noting that the scrappage scheme, the grace period, is only available for businesses. It's not available for ordinary Londoners. But the grace period covers up to 6 months after. So I think it's sort of 29th of February 2024, sort of 28th of February 2024. But that's how it all came about. So yeah, it was some close work with our businesses and our members about a policy that would work, and unfortunately TfL and the mayor listened to us.
They listened. That's the key question.
Indeed.
Okay. And if you're a business that's outside Greater London that works inside London, therefore you'll fall under the ULEZ umbrella. Do any of the counties outside London give any assistance for business who work in London?
I'm not sure, to be honest. If you live and operate your business outside of London, you won't be eligible for any of the mitigations which I talked about, the scrappage scheme or the grace period. You have to be, for all intents and purposes, a Londoner to access these schemes. And as I understand it, there was quite a bit of backlash from some of those home county local authorities around the impact on their constituents and their businesses. The mayor did ask for the government to make money available to local authorities on that sort of periphery, as it were, around London, to make a scrappage scheme available for them. But there was no answer. Well, there was the response from the government was that you shouldn't push forward with the ULEZ expansion anyway. So there was no money made available from central government for this. So that was kind of, and I think with the pressures on local government finances as they are, I don't think you were going to see a scrappage scheme of the same kind as you saw from the mayor.
Okay, Sally, you can put me back on mute now.
No, just a quick question in the chat box. It's somebody saying that Hillingdon does have charging points at car parks and at some hotels. Is that different to commercial charging? I'm thinking it is.
I think when we typically talk about commercial charging, particularly when we talk in our polling, we talk about charging points which are specifically reserved for the use by businesses and for their commercial vehicles. Yes, there are a number of charging points which are around, which can be used by anyone. But I think when we're talking about commercial EV charging points, we're thinking about charging points that are reserved for use by businesses for whatever purpose they need.
I can throw in as well, even West Thames College are installing commercial charging points in the car park.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. I'm sort of aware of time as always. I know, Ros, you have to jump off is it at 10:30? Is it Ros or was it Nima? I'm getting confused now. Anyway,
it's Ross.
It's Ross, right. Our next speaker is Ross from Engineered Green Technologies to talk about biogas gas plant and emulsifiers to reduce carbon emissions. Sounds fascinating.
Good morning to everyone. Yes, my name is Rostan Tahmasebi. I am originally Persian. I've been living in the UK for 42 years. I have actually got into the recycling and renewable energy since 2003. It's been quite a challenging job then, but as we all know now, it's becoming a norm all over the world, so we don't need to explain what the recycling or renewable energy would do for future. We all know that. But I established a company called Team Kian, which was then joint company with Team in Denmark. And then we established a company over here called Engineered Green Technology. We have designed and actually created a plant in Tehran, in Seoul, South Korea. We have done a plant in North Italy, and also we worked in the water treatment in Denmark, Aarhus. So our aim always was that we try to recycle as much as we can. And as you all know, maybe 20 years ago was not, people did not want to know. But so anyway, right now we are, I have created the biggest, actually, recycling site in Tehran, which was alongside recycling the organic and domestic waste into energy through biogas plants. And it was quite a successful venture until I was running it. And then Mr. Alan Wright knows that, he visited that site. And actually, until it was in my hand, it was running perfectly. And we also did the same on the smaller scale in Seoul, which is still working. So our job works alongside with what we do. We are connected with United Nations, and also we have some good scientists, and we work alongside with Southampton University and Sheriff University of Tehran. And also we have some Indian scientists on board that we basically in-house, we manufacture, we design, we get different companies to manufacture the machineries for us, and we set aside. So alongside that, we work with a company in Italy called Sequespa, which is a leading biogas company. We work, as I said, with team in Whitecrow. We work with Astro UK for the waste, building waste materials, and we also work with a couple of Chinese companies and for the water treatment. So we have a patent and designed some water treatment machineries that are mobile and for developing countries, specifically for Africa and Middle East and some Asian countries. These are all in basically based on the containers, can be removed from places to places. What we do, we treat the wastewater, we treat into the agricultural water, and we also can treat the river water for drinking water. We have donated over 20 of those to some African and through United Nations. We right now are working on the bigger scale on that to bring into the to the world if we can. We had a massive challenge to establish ourselves in UK, and that was started when Mr. Boris Johnson, my favorite person, was then mayor of London. We had a couple of meetings, and we actually tried to get basically do some work in the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, for some reasons, we couldn't. However, we have a wonderful designs and machineries that we can start working in UK, and we are announcing that if there is any opportunities for us, we have a finance set up and we have a plan and machinery set up. So we would really like to work in the United Kingdom as well, and to establish the biogas Well, the biogas is, as you know, in China, there's about 100,000 plants of big scale of biogas. We have 16,000 in Germany. Unfortunately, in the United Kingdom, I think they have only about 1,000. But in the future, it's going to be the biggest sort of answer to recycling and renewable energy. We have tried working on solar panels, which has got a lot of problems, and we are talking. Actually, we're talking with Mr. Alan Wright through his connection with some gentleman that he introduced to us in Reading, which I haven't forgotten, and we are really going to invest in that facilities to see if we can have a future in that. But there is so we basically are hoping and willing to establish some sort of arrangement, if we can, with yourselves, to see if we can become a joint. It doesn't have to be a massive corporation to take over future of recycling, as they did with the oil or whatever else. It could be ordinary people like us setting up a massive corporation just for people, not for profit. We should really think about that. I mean, and this is what my proposal is, and this is what my company does. We have wonderful people, scientists that they do not think of profit, they think of the future. And so here I am, and I'm open to any questions. Or if, unfortunately, I have to apologize to all of you because I somehow that the hospital appointment happened to be in the middle of this. But if there's any question, I've got another 5 minutes. So I hand over to you, Sally.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sure that if there are questions, we will feed them back to you. Would that work for you, Ros?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Can I say then, Sally, before Ross disappears,
Yeah.
First of all, never say no to a hospital appointment in today's world.
Yeah.
But are you talking about anaerobic digesters when you're talking?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Okay. So yes, I visited your site when I was a government DIT trade officer, and it's a fantastic site you've got in Iran. The situation in the UK, maybe we can help. Now your company is based in Chiswick, part of Hounslow. I'm sure we can lend some help with that. We've got one of Thames Water's biggest sites in our borough at Mogden. I'm sure that they may be interested in a lot of the slurry that comes out of their creating biogas from that. They take away huge volumes every day, so processing it physically on site would work a lot, and hopefully the council may be able to be involved and help us with that. And we regard some of the areas in the west of the borough, like Reading, where you mentioned, as Greater Hounslow now. So we look forward to helping you with that company, who, yes, have got a fantastic, clever technology for battery storage in solar panels. So, yes, we look forward to working closely with you and welcome your foreign direct investment into our borough. Thank you, Ross.
That's great. Thank you. Also, just mention a point that we do actually design, and we do have manufacturers on board, as you know, Alan, that we actually design a specific machineries for specific projects. So anything comes up, we send our whole team. They would check everything. They would design on that specific products, and basically everything. We calculate everything before we implant the site.
There's a sorry to interrupt, because I'm aware of the time, and you've got to jump off to the hospital appointment. There is a quick question in the chat. Are you looking at food waste or agricultural slurry and wastewater? Can you do everything?
We can do everything.
Super.
Every waste.
Yeah.
As we know, everything is recyclable apart from few things. The rest of the things can all be recycled.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good luck with the hospital.
I want to thank you all for your time. It's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure meeting you all. And I believe Mr. Romain and Mr. Nima are from my country. So if they want to talk to me later on, I got a proposal that I can put to them.
Thank you. Yeah, you've now
Thank
got
you.
each other's emails. That's great.
Let's share a cello kebab soon.
Brilliant. Next up
Why
is
not? A nice person would.
Nice to talk to you, Ross. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank
you, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Next up is Councillor Katherine Dunne, who's the Deputy Leader of Hounslow Council and Cabinet Member for Climate, Environment and Transport Strategy. And Alan reminded me before we started the webinar that Hounslow Council declared a climate emergency way back in 2019, led in no small part, I think, by Katherine. So well done, that woman. And please, over to you, Katherine.
Thank you very much, Sally. And I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. Yes, so as you say, we declared a climate emergency in 2019. I've got a motion to Borough Council in order to declare a climate emergency, which could have been an empty gesture, but I'm very pleased to say that it wasn't. And you know, at the time, I was really, really impressed by the way the whole council got behind this declaration, from the leader, who was Steve Curran at the time, to the chief executive, to the whole council in setting up new structures and new teams to help us on this journey, but also across the council itself. There was very much an awareness that this was something we needed to do and to embed into all of our council policies. So the first thing that we did, having declared the climate emergency, was to get working on a climate emergency action plan. So this was 2019 going into 2020, so pandemic year. We did a lot of engagement with our communities and businesses at that time in order to develop the plan. Obviously, partway through that process, we had to change the way we worked and move things online due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which actually gave us new opportunities, new ways of talking to people, new ways of engaging.
Your sound has gone, Katherine. Sorry, we can no longer hear you. Lisa, have you got any suggestions?
No, I don't know how to.
No.
It doesn't show on the screen that you're muted, Katherine. Are your speakers connected?
Your microphone stopped
Are your
working,
microphone
your
connected and plugged in properly?
It's as if your headphones have just stopped working.
Yeah.
She's nodding, so I think that's what's happened.
Right.
Okay, maybe if you move on
Yes.
to another speaker,
Sure,
Sally, and come back to Katherine
yeah,
after.
we'll come back to you, Katherine. Okay. Next we have is Nima Eskandari from Agtelligence talking about climate tech. Katherine, do you want to stop sharing screen? Thank you. Nima, over to you, please.
Okay, yeah, hello everyone. Let me get that screen thing sorted. Just bear with me. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yes, my name is Nima and I'm the CEO of Agtelligence. We are a climate tech company. 8 years ago, when I was flying to this beautiful and green country for the first time, I had no idea that the UK would be positioned third from the bottom when it comes to preserving biodiversity along European countries. So many people think it's biodiversity is just about plants and animals. And today I'm going to talk about biodiversity. So what is biodiversity and why does it matter? all the food we eat, the air we breathe, and the environment, everything that make the planet Earth inhabitable, they are all rely on billions of species around the world. This is biodiversity, and unfortunately, as we all know, it's rapidly declining. Let me give you some figure. According to the UN, we need at least $700 billion by 2030 to fill global biodiversity financing gap. And as we can see, 50% of the finance should go to agricultural land to fix our croplands. But here's the good news. All these money that you see on this slide goes to support green projects, sustainable projects, climate finance, and so on. So we need 700 billion. We've got trillions. Problem solved, right? Short problem solution ever. I wish that were the case. But now, as government and organizations trying to deliver those commitments, it's actually proving to be very hard. It's really hard to deploy real money into real technology that will actually fix environment and decarbonize the world. As a result, much of the money is sitting on the side. We think that can be changed. What we have learned and what corporations tell us is that they need data to ensure the money is effectively used and makes a genuine impact on the environment. They require a transparent and tangible monitoring, verification, and reporting system. This system can also validate real environmental outcomes, addressing the issue of greenwashing, where corporate overstate and exaggerate their environmental effort. We realized that there wasn't a simple and a scalable solution. So we collaborated with major universities and organizations in the UK to build a solution that can help financial institutions and corporate to get the data they need. We started focusing on farmlands, which have witnessed the most significant biodiversity loss. Our project is funded and supported by UK Space Agency and European Space Agency in the UK, and we are active member of a Space for Climate Tech. We got a startup award in Southeast England, and we are actively working with the industry and universities. So what we do? We use Earth observation data and machine learning to monitor, verify, and report environmental outcome of nature-based projects, and depends on the project, we can introduce different score indicators. Our methodology is aligned with ESG, environment, social, and governance, ESG frameworks that is currently being used by corporations, providing live, tangible, and transparent results. I think I shall stop here, and I would love to speak with anyone on this call who is involved in a business with a commitment to supporting the environment, or who may have an ESG budget or engage in corporate social responsibility. What we do is connect you to our project partners who introduce environmental projects, and you can use our services to have access to the environmental outcome of the projects. We also provide consultancy services, and if you want to know more, I suggest visiting our website. There are also some good articles about biodiversity and nature solution written by William Rickard, who is our Chief Scientific Officer, and he's on this call as well. And we are available to answer any question. And if I may, I can quickly just share a 1-minute video about our business. Just want to stop sharing and share that video.
At Agtelligence, we are connecting organizations to the environment. Harnessing the power of Earth observation data, we're driving positive change for our planet. Introducing FarmScore, our innovative solution that empowers farmers and corporations to make informed decisions about their environmental impact. From boosting biodiversity and soil health to aligning with ESG and SDGs goals, we're helping governments and organizations better support the environment. Collaborating with universities, our unique scoring model simplifies complex data to track environmental outcomes. With a global reach, we are able to apply our technology to help solve environmental challenges. Visit our website to learn more.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nima. Thank you. Also, I will be publicising. Heathrow are holding a webinar on the 17th of August about ESG, and that will be in my update information about that, which is hopefully going out later on today. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Katherine. I think you're now able to. It was a Bluetooth problem. Yes.
I'm hoping so. Yes. It just disconnected for no reason. It seems to be okay now. So I'm going to jump straight back in and obviously not try to waste too much time reintroducing things or anything. So just to get straight in there, our target as a council is to have a 100% reduction in our net council emissions by 2030. So ahead of the UK's target of 2050, we have said we want to be net zero by 2030. And that's obviously a very ambitious target. And when we made that, I don't think we knew how we were going to get there. But that's the plans that we started having to put into place. And there's a few additional targets that go along with that. Such as generating 25% of our own electricity that's for our next target of 2026. And in order to get us on the way to our 2030 net zero target, we want to be halfway there. So we want to have reduced 50% of our carbon emissions by 2026, which is, of course, is when this current council term ends. It is an ambitious target. You will see that we have a long way to go. At our last annual update, we were able to report that we had reduced our emissions by 2.5%, which is a long way off 100%, and it's a long way off 50%. There are quite a lot of actions we've taken that were not showing up yet in those figures, and I'm hoping that next month, when I report to Cabinet on our third annual update, we will be able to show a much more significant reduction in our emissions. But there's still a long way to go. What we've worked out is that from the plans that we currently have in place, that we currently have funding available for, we will be able to get to a 23% reduction in emissions by 2026. So that leaves us with a gap, and we have had to look at everything to see how we can bridge that gap to reach our 2026 target. So this shows some of the work that's currently underway. So social housing, the energy used to heat social housing, council housing, is the largest proportion of our carbon emissions as a council. And so we have been successful in applying for funding in order to retrofit our social housing stock. There's still a long way to go. And it's worth saying that whilst I've got some excellent teams in place at the council who are really good at putting together bids and applying for funding from the government in order to do this work, it's really, if you think about it, it's time that shouldn't be needing to be spent. We shouldn't be having to bid against other councils for money in order to carry out work that we acknowledge needs to be done, the government acknowledges needs to be done. We are discussing this with government, and lots of other councils are discussing this as well. What we really need is a simplified funding stream that will enable us to carry out the work, that will enable other councils to carry out the work. I think one council did an analysis of all the different funding pots that it had to bid into just to be able to carry out the work that it's doing. And it's huge. You know, we're talking about dozens, if not hundreds of different more than, you know, over 100 different funding pots that needed to be bid into. So that is something we're good at, but it's something we shouldn't be having to do. Moving on. So to reach our 50% reduction on that funding, we will need an investment of around £200 million, which the council does not currently have. So it doesn't come cheap, but it is, of course, necessary. And the way that we need to do that is accelerating that decarbonisation of our corporate buildings and our schools. We've done very well on that so far. We have retrofitted 29 corporate buildings and 32 schools, or is it the other way around? Approximately 30 of each, in order to install air source heat pumps, LED lighting, and various other measures that are starting to bring down the carbon footprint of those buildings, as well as reducing our bills in terms of the corporate buildings. For the schools, it's then the schools that make those savings on the bills. That, of course, will be the same as we retrofit our housing stock. That will save our residents, our council tenants, money on their heating bills, which is great for them, and it's very important in a cost of living crisis. It does present a challenge for the council because we're putting in the money, we have to find the funding, and then are not benefiting. It's not the council that sees the financial benefit, but then, of course, everything that the council does is for the benefit of our residents. So we're very pleased that our tenants will see that benefit. It just does provide a little bit extra of a financial challenge for us to make it all stack up. Other areas that we are working on is increasing that renewable energy generation targets, electrifying our vehicle fleet where we can. So we have plans to move to a fully electric vehicle fleet over time. Obviously, we do have several hundred vehicles, so it will take some time to do that. And some of those bigger vehicles, I'm thinking like refuse trucks and so on, it's much harder to be able to transfer those to electric at the moment. We don't necessarily have the charging infrastructure in place, as has been discussed, but we do have a plan for putting that into place. So there will be a transition period where we're looking at other alternative, much lower carbon fuels as well. When we're looking at our emissions, it's not only what we're doing ourselves, it's what we're procuring, the services that we buy, that we provide, and we have to understand what our carbon emissions are in those areas as well. So we're doing a big piece of work on that. And then, of course, through our sustainable investment programme, we're able to have an influence on wider emissions as well, and to ensure that we are, over time, divesting from sources that are harmful to the planet and investing in sustainable funds. So that's how, and there's more of that here. So we have got a strong track record on that. We are currently, and this will come to Cabinet later on in the year, developing a bid to the net zero neighbourhoods. We want to be a neighbourhood demonstrator. This is all about bringing private finance into the borough in order to help to retrofit not just council properties, but also private homes throughout the borough. This is a new venture. It's something that local government doesn't typically do. And we're very excited to be working on this, and I'd be more than happy to come back once we've got those plans developed further in order to talk about them. So finally, you won't be able to read this slide. I'm sure that I'm sure that Sally will be happy to send it around. It's just a snapshot of some of the projects that we've been working on in order to deliver a pathway to net zero. I'm really pleased about all of these, and we have many more to come.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, every time I get some news from the council, it's more things that you're doing. I'm thinking of the allotments, you know, the sort of rough ground turning into allotments and school children being encouraged to grow, signing the food wastage charter. I for one am very pleased to be living in the Borough of Hounslow. So thank you for all you're doing to try and get us there.
Kate, before we move on, can I ask you a question? We've got some quite a few members who've got innovative products in the green sector. What's the best way of introducing them into Hounslow Council so that they can be part of these projects and the Hounslow pound gets spent locally in Hounslow to benefit the council, the people that live here, and those local companies?
Yeah, so one thing we're very keen on is the green economy and getting the benefit of development of new green technologies and the jobs and local businesses that are working in this area, and making sure that the benefit of that comes to local people who are living in Hounslow. So we've set up our Green Academy. We're working on the green skills with West Thames College, with other organisations, in order to ensure that people have got those skills that need to come through. But we need to work with the businesses themselves to understand, you know, what are the skills that are needed, what are their needs, how can that be harnessed to help people in Hounslow as well as helping us obviously reach those broader targets. So we're doing some more work on that over the next coming months, and I think we're going to have something like I imagine it's something around like a road show that will be taking around the borough, talking to businesses, and so I think probably in the autumn, following our a green investment paper that's coming, then we'll be able to share some more details of that.
Okay, and that's when we'll be able to know the best people to introduce those local companies to, for them to be part of this, will it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll make sure the whole team is there, and that and also that there's external investors. We want to do something with that as well, to make sure that because we've been working with 3CI on this, and they've had regional investment events, but we want to do something specific for Hounslow.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
go for it, Catherine.
And there's just a question in the chat from
yes,
Michael.
There's lots of questions in the chat. Yeah.
So net zero is so the baseline is just what we're using so that we can say how far we've come. So net zero is net zero. It basically means as low as we can get in terms of our emissions, and hopefully a very small amount then through offsetting. Then so it is zero. So the baseline is just so we can say how far we've come. So when I give the update in September, we'll be able to say we've reduced our emissions X% from the 2018-19 baseline.
Okay. Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Right, our next speaker is Chris Smith from Meld Energy, talking about hydrogen. And there was a question in before from one of the registrars, one of the guests. How big is the hydrogen industry now? And I'm sure you're going to cover that. So away you go.
unmute. There we go. Hi. Yeah, I guess I need to move quite quickly, given football starts in 9 minutes. Good morning. I'm Chris Smith. I'm the founder and chief executive of Meld Energy. We are a green hydrogen developer. Thought I'd take you on a little journey through where we are and where we've been going the last couple of years. Green hydrogen developer with deep expertise in the delivery of renewable energy projects and a specialism in the green hydrogen, the derivative space. We aim to play our part in driving the green hydrogen revolution, both at home in the UK and internationally, particularly looking at the low-cost power markets. Green hydrogen, it's probably worth explaining what that is. There are two main ways to produce hydrogen. One is to take methane and take it through a steam methane reformation process, which essentially produces 1 kilogram of hydrogen for 12 kilograms of CO2. Not very good for the world. Green hydrogen, there are no emissions of CO2. We take renewable power and we put that into water and we electrolyze water, producing hydrogen and oxygen. And the global market, just to answer that question up front, is just under 100 million tons of hydrogen globally, of which less than 1% is green. So there's a long way for us to go. You can see why we're focused on the green hydrogen market. Our first steps are in the UK, and we have that's not building. That was supposed to show you where our pipeline and projects are. We're developing a number of 100 megawatt plus electrolytic hydrogen projects, green hydrogen projects. In context, the largest merchant facility in the UK right now is about 3 megawatts. So our flagship sites are at least 30 times that size and are directly focused on decarbonising industry, the places that are already using hydrogen, grey hydrogen. Our flagship project is in the northeast near to Hull. It's 100 megawatts. We've got 3 or 4 more projects coming along in that same area, largely to decarbonise, to take CO2 out of the atmosphere. We're leveraging our experience, market knowledge and network to deliver through a simplified development process, which we're refining constantly. We have a modular design that we're able to deliver and repeat at scale in the UK and international markets. We are backed by Fortune 100 company World Fuel Services, recently rebadged as World Connect Corporation. They boast many years' experience in the international fuel markets with a track record of delivery through innovation, supply chain excellence and cost control. We are their first main foray, or their only foray, into green hydrogen, but they do participate significantly in the low carbon fuel space. Their market access is broad and deep, with the main markets of marine, aviation and land, with hundreds of thousands of customers. And something that we're coming to learn quite quickly is that most of their customers are seeking to decarbonise, and they're looking to World Fuel Services or World Connect Corporation to help with that transition. We are as I said, we're the hydrogen arm to World Fuels. We're working together to deliver a hydrogen ecosystem that includes hydrogen and derivative fuels like e-methanol, ammonia, sustainable aviation fuel, whether that's for marine, port handling, heavy goods, passenger transport, heavy industry, aviation. We're locating close to large demand, and we'll continue to locate with eyes on how we can get hydrogen-based fuels to market, or hydrogen-derived fuels to market. Our mission is to make it simple and give access to the companies and governments that need it when they need it. Our approach is collaborative by nature, and our focus is bringing the renewable energy system into the production of hydrogen and derivatives. We're taking a modular approach, developing repeatable systems that can be deployed at pace and scale with a focus on hubs. So if you look at this diagram, everything in yellow on the left, that's a well-established market. We're very happy to work with anybody producing renewable energy. We're just hungry for it. We'll take whatever's produced and we'll use that to produce hydrogen. That's where we sit in the middle. And then we get access to market, mainly working through our investors. But we see most of the hydrogen market likely going towards hydrogen-derived fuels, so things like e-methanol, ammonia, and sustainable aviation fuel. So our first facility, our first major facility, will be in Hull, or just to the east of Hull, in a chemical park. So this is essentially what we are building at the moment. So we need 100 megawatts of baseload power, and we will get that through a series of local generators or PPAs that will be carried over the transmission grid. We're happy to use solar, offshore, onshore, hydro, geothermal. We will use battery storage, and we will use the grid to get power to us. And we're also in advancing discussions with small modular reactor developers. So nuclear power will also play a part. We need water, lots and lots of water, demineralized water that will be produced for us on site. Fortunately, in that part of the country, in Hull, it's got plenty of water, so there's nothing to be too concerned about there. What we produce is hydrogen, oxygen, and heat. It's as simple as that. H2O, hydrogen, 40,000 kilograms a day. Oxygen, 320,000 kilograms a day, and quite a lot of heat, which we'll look to put into heat networks. I saw a question on the chat around heat networks. Yeah, I mean, it's an obvious place for us to put our heat into. And oxygen, it's a market that exists. It's quite cheap in comparison to hydrogen, so it's really a waste product for what we do. But we're very happy to rather than just vent it into the atmosphere, we're very happy to put that into industry or the healthcare sector as needed. So rounding off, I'm actually really just repeating this from a presentation I gave at the World Future Energy Summit earlier this year, where there were lots of people interested in how they could work with us. So as a green hydrogen developer, we need to work with off-takers to match to their demand. So everything we produce has to be sold in order to be compliant with our investors, compliant with government subsidies. We need renewable power. We work with the renewable development market to get to buy that power, to potentially to unlock grid constrained and curtailed generation. We need water. We need delivery partners. As we build our pipeline out and expand, we'll also need investors who can bring DevEx, development capital, and CapEx to fund proven and risk managed processes to the delivery of green hydrogen. So finalizing, we're Meld. We're a green hydrogen developer. We're collaborative by nature. The market is far, far bigger than we could ever manage to supply. So we're very happy to work with industry, with our competitors to drive us towards the targets that we have. And I could go on for hours, but I'm conscious that I've had my time and I need to hand back.
Thank you very much indeed, Chris, for that whistle-stop tour. I'm just amazed about what everybody, what's going on out there. Alan, any questions for Chris?
Yes, Chris, can I quickly ask you, in terms of applications, we're all people that move around locally and, dare I say, drive cars. Some of us anyway. Will we get to a point where hydrogen cars are the prevalent vehicle of choice instead of electric cars and currently gas diesel cars? Or is hydrogen more destined for the larger vehicle market of big lorries going long distances or commercial ships traveling across the oceans? And secondly, in industrial use, big factories get their powers and homes get their powers from nuclear or gas powered power stations in the UK. Will we get to a point of having hydrogen powered power stations?
Hydrogen, I think right now is being focused on the places that need it the most. So in industry, in chemicals, and to derive fuels. Hydrogen, there are hydrogen cars at the moment, but they tend to be quite expensive. Hydrogen, I think, because hydrogen is quite expensive, it tends to work in where you've really got to focus on the operating hours and the range. So if you think about a car, the average car doesn't need to go that far. So really, you don't need to have something electric. Battery electric is just fine. For HGVs, when you need to get, where you need to travel hundreds or thousands of miles in a day and operating hours are key, that's where hydrogen is likely to have a role. Batteries for HGVs, they take up an awful lot of weight, so you lose a lot of carrying capacity. So we think that hydrogen is likely to have a role in transport, but only at the higher end, the heavier end. Most likely cars will just move towards battery electric as range will increase on that. So hydrogen is likely to be is actually just hydrogen on its own. I don't think is going to be that significant for the short term, because it's mainly going to go into derivative fuels. And what I mean by that is producing ammonia, methanol, sustainable aviation fuel, which will take ships around the world. So there's pressure on marine to decarbonize, the pressure on aviation to decarbonize. And all of those are fairly well established industries. So really what we're doing is we're looking to decarbonize those industries before we go anywhere else. Does that answer both of your questions?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very, very much. We all live close to Heathrow, and we're very aware of their policies on SAF and hydrogen at 2030 and at 2050. So it's very interesting. But I spotted a local police car driving along saying hydrogen on the side of it. And then I realised that there's only 3 hydrogen stations in the whole of London. So
yeah, I mean, the problem we have with hydrogen for small vehicles is that it's very, very expensive right now, because we don't have the distribution infrastructure. But you know, it may happen in time. But I think, you know, right now battery's winning that battle. But I think it's horses for courses at the end of the day.
all right, fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Enlightening.
Pleasure.
Right, our final speaker is Romain Richli from Bouygues. I got the pronunciation right, and I know now how to spell it. Who's going to be talking about sustainable construction? Romain.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So I'm Romain from Bouygues UK. We are also known as Equans or Bouygues Energies and Services in south of England, in London and in Wales. I'm not going to talk about sustainable construction. I'm going to talk about carbon, because sustainability is much wider, as Nima mentioned, biodiversity and ecosystems and water and waste and social value. So it's going to be about carbon today on the Net Zero webinar. I'm going to go quick on the introduction. The house is on fire. This is the levels of ppms of CO2 in the atmosphere for the last 400,000 years. And you can see on the right side of it how urgent and how what the level of emergency since the 1950s, when we actually started to burn fossil fuel. Construction is responsible or part of about 40% of the UK carbon footprint. And 75% of that are the actual buildings you see in the city and in the cities in the UK. The use and the burning of gas and fossil fuels for them to remain lit and to remain warm, mainly in winter. So we have a huge part to play on the net zero journey as a company in the building industry. Where is the carbon in the construction industry? It's mainly here, 39% in the product themselves, the product we purchase and we install on our sites, in the buildings we deliver the bricks, the concrete, the steel, the partitions, the gypsum, all of that, 39% from extraction of raw materials, transportation, manufacturing, all this process. Another large third, 37%, is the use of the buildings we deliver. This is for a new build. So a big third, 37% at the bottom of the slide, is how much gas and fossil fuels and CO2 is going to be emitted through the 60 years lifespan of this specific building. And here, 18% is the renewal of the materials, when you'll have, for the 60 years lifespan, have to change some component, the carpets, ceilings, the decoration, and all this refurbishment throughout 60 years. And here you can see why it's with my little logo here, because my activity as such, as a contractor, how much fossil fuel I burn and how much CO2 I actually emit is about 1% of my footprint as an organization. I can influence 100%, but I control directly this little 1%, which is still a paramount focus for our business. We need to be exemplar on that first percent before or at the same time as asking others to make efforts to reduce their carbon. We have a trajectory towards net zero 2050, which is aligned with the science-based target initiatives. And we are on a net zero trajectory towards 2025 for our scopes 1 and 2 means how much electricity we consume and how much fossil fuel we burn, mainly gas and liquid fuels on our machineries. And we have a target to reduce by 30% our footprint upstream and downstream throughout the value chain by 2030. To make it simple on that heavy slide, I blanked a bit of things you don't have to read. This is for our scopes 1 and 2, where our carbon actually is located. Most of it, 52% in our electricity consumed on our project, 26% for the liquid fuels on our project. And on the right side here, the status of our trajectory from our baseline 2021, going down to close to 0 2025 and hope lower than that. And we've been able to reduce in 2022 by about 50%, and we are on our journey at Q2 2023 at about 1,031 tons now towards the 848 as a target. So there is some progress. And in front of this trajectory, in front of this strategy, we have put together a range of actions and a way to implement from 2021 towards 2025. Here, maybe 15 or 16 actions so that we reach our net zero target on this scopes 1 and 2. And yes, I heard before from Stephen and from Katherine, moving our fleet towards electric vehicles. And since 2020, our brochure of company cars is only electric and hybrid plugins. So we are slowly moving towards this electric fleet, and hopefully the electric grid will be more and more renewable as we move forward. I will give more information on a few of these actions a bit later on. On scope 3, which is the value chain of a building company and development company, as I mentioned before, mainly 3/3, the materials we purchase and use. 18% are the materials that have to be renewed for the 60 years period of a typical building, and 37% is the energy efficiency of the buildings we deliver. And we've reached in 2022 447, which is a slight reduction from the 460, still a bit short from our target. But the scope 3 action plan has started a bit later than scope 1 and 2, so it took a bit more time to get embedded into the mindsets of our staff and our business as a whole. But there is some progress towards 2030. And again, here we have solutions developed from 2021 towards 2030 and progressively implementing some of the elements I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. So these are the solutions. And here only a quick focus on some of them, and I'm going to mention here 2 of them. Smart technologies on the top left, which helps us to understand where our energy goes into a degree of detail, which helps us then to move towards climate action. You can't action something if you don't know where and how you consume. So these smart technologies on our site help us to understand whether that's the train, that's the site cabin, that's a specific equipment that consumes the most energy, and it then helps the team to fix the issues and make modifications. An electric plant here. I mentioned electric plant, and I'm sorry, Chris, we also have hydrogen plants, although that's still a bit early stage. Only a few of them are coming now to the market, and we are trialing and testing some hydrogen plants on our sites in order to move from fossil fuels. And top right, biofuels, which for some of it is biogas, as mentioned by Ross before. Also hydrotreated vegetable oil, which is waste oil we use to replace our fossil fuel in our machinery, and indeed generating energy on our sites as much as possible towards autonomous site cabins and site and work sites. A few others here. Timber construction, which is not new, but much more a bit hard in the UK given the fire regulation. But for low rise, there isn't a way for us to move towards timber construction. Low carbon concrete and low carbon steel, which is indeed these 2 ones, concrete and steel, are our 2 main contributors. They gather about 35% of the material as a carbon emission. So they are our key focus. And refurbishment, and this is the Market Spencer and Oxford Street. You might have heard about the controversy about it, but yes, let's try to move away from demolishing and building new, and use as best as we can what we have in our hands and improve these assets and this portfolio of buildings we have. Finally, on the efficiency of the buildings we deliver, fabric first. I mentioned before, 75% of the UK carbon footprint for the building industry is on the existing assets. And this is something we don't want to face in the future. So we need to be over ambitious on envelope, insulation, and thermal performance of the building we deliver. Heat pumps and moving away from fossil fuels. So we don't install any more boilers, indeed, and we move towards air source heat pumps, ground source heat pump, water source heat pump, which are much more efficient, 3-4 times more efficient than a boiler, and are fossil free, and maximizing energy generation. So once we move towards electric, and there was a comment in the chat saying the grid is not promising any more power right now, and it's agreed. The first step is to reduce demand and to generate energy on site as much as possible, to move towards autonomy as much as possible. So this is what we do. And finally here, that's the key message today. I didn't do all of that myself. I started and I tried to enable a collaboration spirit in the business, and we organized last year, in the past year, 35 workshops, inviting everyone to contribute to these workshops. We had 1,300 times people raising their hands and saying, we should be doing that. Why can't we do that? And contributing towards the better good for our business. We had a few discussions and debates, indeed, sometimes some disagreements on the way forward, but this is how we build that. I didn't do any of that myself. From these contributions and from these people, from our staff here, I built these beautiful images and graphs and pie charts and trajectories. I just had to put it all together, but this really comes from our people, because actually the people know. We think it's a rocket science and it's very complicated. It's not that complicated. It's quite common sense, actually. Our people know it's then about mindset, sharing good practice, and be willing to implement a change in our daily routines. That's how we made it work so far at Bouygues, and hopefully towards 2025 and 2030.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm thinking of a smaller company, Agtelligence Technologies, who they have a committee of interested staff members who are in all things green, and they meet together regularly just to discuss best practice and what they can do. I think that's really interesting. Where are your workshops held? Are they sort of held in London or all over?
I went to all our sites, actually, our work sites, and I went in Wales, there in Carmarthen, and to see these guys, our people, and talk to them. So it happens throughout our offices and sites in the UK.
Yeah. Brilliant. Alan, do you have any final questions? In fact, I've actually got a final question for you, Alan, from somebody. Are you there? No, I think maybe he's jumped off. I
wouldn't dare jump off, even
No.
though the score is still 0-0.
Lovely, great. Okay. Romain, that was really interesting. What I love about these webinars is I'm just looking at all the conversations in the chat box, especially this one. There's so many ideas, and you know, this has really got the sort of the juices flowing, if you see what I mean, which is what we as a chamber like to do. Alan,
Romain, I'll send you an introduction through to one of our chamber members who produces ceramic heaters for offices and homes that run at 15 pence per day, saving you a huge amount on boiler water supply in your house. Plus they do a ceramic boiler as well, which is again electrically powered, which can be run off solar panels, so it's very environmentally friendly and just huge cost savings.
Thank you.
I've got
the opt-in valve for using Carmarthenshire is Wales as well.
One very final quick question for you, Alan. This was put in by one of our guests. I hope they're still on. Import-export carbon tax, and when will this come into play? Do you know?
So there isn't any plans to put in place any carbon tax at the moment, because the UK government is negotiating its way through having free trade agreements with people all around the world. If we start implementing taxes for things that are imported ourselves, that'll have repercussions all around the world with all of the other trade agreements that we've got. We've just spent the last 5 years trying to negotiate these, which are coming to fruition now after Brexit. So I don't think any new taxes will come in play that we'll put in place unilaterally to put in jeopardy all of these other agreements that we've got. But governments come and governments change, and that happens quite a lot in this country. So watch this space, you never know.
Lovely. Okay, I just want to thank everybody on that note, because we have gone over time, but I think it's been very, very interesting. Thank you all for your time and for your contribution this morning. And yeah, have a good rest of the day and week. Okay.
Illuminating. Thank you all very much. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.